So first of
Yeah.
all, hello everybody who's joining us. Here we have Jonathan R. Bland, who
Mm-hmm.
is, in my eyes, a black belt paid traffic for B2B SaaS companies expert. Like he's a ninja. And welcome to this little conversation. I never did LinkedIn Lives, by the way. So we've had
Yeah.
like a ton of Zoom meetings and Zoom webinars,
Yeah.
but not LinkedIn Live.
I need to do
Um,
some myself. I haven't done one either. Been on other lives, but not myself. So this will be fun.
yeah.
Raw.
First off, you're probably going to assume that my first question is going to be about paid traffic, but it's not. My first question is about organic traffic. And within
Mm.
that, I saw that you have a nice amount of followers on LinkedIn
Hmm.
and you're at like 9,500. You're going to hit 10,000 pretty soon. And my
Yep.
question is, are you going to celebrate when you hit 10K?
I've never really been a big fan of the whole celebrating followers. I know a lot of people do it and they love to say, "Hey, thanks, I got to 15,000. Thanks, I got to 20." I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I mean, ultimately, the thing that I always say when I see those things is, I mean, are those the right followers? Are those the right people that want to be getting your content? Many times, like these are just people that you kind of connected with or whatever. So probably not. I mean, I think we'll just go to the next one, whatever the next rung is, and then move
100K.
on. But as long as people are getting value from it, I mean, that's the important thing, you know.
Yeah.
Every post that I try to write, I'm trying to think of, if I read this, like, would I get some type of insight from this? And of course, like, it's never going to be good for everyone, right? But yeah, no, probably not going to celebrate at 10K.
Okay. And in your eyes, how important is organic traffic, or traction, or reach when it comes to a social media platform, be it LinkedIn, which is probably the primary platform for us B2B folks? Like, how important is it for you that you have a big organic reach?
I think it's very important, just like any other channel is. So, you can think about, paid and organic also working together simultaneously as well.
Yeah.
But when you've got organic post and you are creating good content for your ICP on LinkedIn and you're getting lots of people see that content, then all the other channels that you're running along with organic are going to all start performing better because you're more
Mm-hmm.
familiar. It's like, oh, hey, I know that guy Dan, or hey, I know that guy Jonathan, or hey,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen these people before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's incredibly
Yeah.
important. And it's also, I mean, an easy opportunity for you to fairly cheaply, minus the time to actually produce the content, get people to consume content that you are creating. And people also want to follow you a lot of times. They don't want to follow companies. So they want to see what Dan
True.
says or what I'm saying or what
Exactly.
someone else is saying. So yeah, I think the organic game's huge. It's interesting to know that, and everyone knows the stat, probably most of the LinkedIn creators, but only 1% of people are actively creating content. I believe it's on like a weekly basis. So to
Yeah.
be in the 1% is extremely easy to get up right up in the top. All you have to do is just create a process and a flow to stay consistent doing it.
Well,
So
maybe
yeah,
easy for you. For me, it's freaking difficult. Like I've been doing
yeah,
this constant content creation thing for a year and a half or almost 2 years now. And still,
yeah,
I gotta admit, I struggle. Like
yeah,
I have a process, but it's probably not very good or not
yeah,
working for me that well. But I
yeah.
freaking struggle with
Well,
creating content.
I mean, that's maybe is a good conversation. What's your biggest struggle? Maybe we can dig into that and
My biggest
share.
struggle is starting to create content late and not having an actual plan. I'll just confess to you right here that the way
Sure.
I create content on LinkedIn is I try to get stuff out by 3 p.m. Okay, that almost never
Hmm.
happens.
Hmm.
But 4 p.m., I found that like 4 and 5 p.m. work well also in Central European time where I am.
Sure.
Like they work well also, especially in the summer it worked well. Now like the reach is
Right.
dropping. I don't know if it's the time of day or something else, but yeah, back to your question. What I'm struggling with is like even when I have a few topics that I want to talk about or write about, then when it comes to writing, I tend to just overcomplicate stuff.
Mm.
And I said, no, not this. No, I want to reword it that way. Now
Yeah.
it's too long. Now it's too messy.
Yeah.
And I spend anywhere between, okay, on a good day, like I'll be done in 15 minutes with a long post. But
Sure.
other times I'll be like, oh yeah, this is another thing. I'll be at like minute 40 and then I'll think, I gotta do an illustration for this. So I start drawing up something by hand, run
Right.
the computer, and that adds a
Yeah. Yeah.
bit of time to it. But a lot of times it's worth it because this some of these posts that took a long ass time to produce, they ended up getting a lot of traction and likes and
Right.
whatnot. All the vanity metrics that pump up my ego. So that was
Yeah.
good. but
Yeah.
and obviously some good conversations, but that's my struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I totally feel you on that to a degree. I mean, the way that I think about it, I try to keep it just everything simple as possible if
Mhm.
I can. Some posts I probably spend a little bit more time on, but there's most of them are just kind of stream of consciousness a little bit, writing something that usually I heard right after a call or that I experienced or an experiment I ran or something that I saw or did, et cetera. And it's always fresh in my mind. So it's pretty easy just to kind of write through that. And I find that maybe, I
Uh-huh.
don't know if you do it this way, but I used to do it where I just wake up in the morning at 8 o'clock and start writing. And that was very difficult because I'd have all that pressure at 8 that
Uh-huh.
I needed to get
Uh-huh.
up and write something of which I maybe didn't plan for. And some people are really good at that, and I'm just not. So for me, what works better is I first start by having a category of things that I want to talk about. I'm not perfect on this. Some people are like just very consistent. Like they pick
Mhm.
one little
Mhm.
category, like for example, LinkedIn ads, and they just talk about LinkedIn ads all the time, all day long. I kind of more aligned with just demand gen, which demand gen means a lot of things, right? It's not just even paid. There's a lot of different channels that are in there. So I try to kind of talk about that category, lean more towards paid, and then I have themes of different things that I want to talk about underneath that category. And then again, just keeping it simple and saying, all right, well,
Yeah.
great. It's nighttime or whatever. And I'm usually writing my posts when I'm going to bed or something, because that's when I have a lot of the ideas. Or like I said, right after a call, boom, write something down because it's so fresh in my mind and just get it all out on paper. And then I'll go back in the morning and I'll look at it and be like, holy shit, like grammar's off. Like, this doesn't really make sense. And I'll just kind of like reframe it a little bit. And then it's done. And then I can do that usually within like 3 or so minutes.
Yeah.
The illustrations do take time though. That's, I think, a little bit
Yeah.
tougher depending on what you're trying to do. I did a lot of them actually early on in LinkedIn and I stopped because yeah, it takes some time if you're going to own that yourself, especially if you want to really make sure that the visual aligns really well with the point you're trying to make. Unless you're just naturally really good at it. I'm not, unfortunately. So it does take me some time. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. And by the way, how many times per week do you post?
My goal is usually 3 to 4, but
Mhm.
I also don't really hold myself like I don't post once or twice. It's not really a big deal. I guess for me, I'm all about rather post something that's quality, that I
Yeah.
feel like is going to be of some value versus just saying I've got a quota of posting that needs to happen, and on Tuesday I didn't post, and oh my god, I need to say something. So that's my usual mentality with it. But yeah, usually three
That's
or four
me.
times I'm usually posting. Yeah, or at minimum, like if I
Yeah.
don't have something that I want to share myself, I'll just end up kind of spending some time, which I do most days, just engaging with other people's posts, and try to add some
Yeah.
value to that, and then sometimes I get some engagement. Then that gives me an idea. I'm like, okay, cool. People kind of like that. Maybe they want to hear more about it. I'll write a little post on it. So stuff like that.
Right, right. Yeah.
So,
So everybody, if you're just joining us right now, we're talking to Jonathan R. Bland, who is a paid media specialist for B2B companies. And so far, we've talked nothing in the world about paid media. All we've been talking
yep.
about is organic and posting. But I think that's by design, because a lot of
Mm,
people approach paid media with the intention that, okay, maybe we don't have to work so hard on creating content. Is that
yeah.
something that you come across?
Well, you actually,
Like
before I answer that
clients that,
question, you just gave me an idea. So I'm going to jump around on you a little bit. You have to kind of keep me on the
okay,
rails. But
okay,
you
okay.
gave me an idea what you just said there. And it reminded me about the, again, relationship between organic and paid. And I think many people, the way that we all think about it is we want to create long form content like a podcast, a webinar, or a blog. And then we want
Mhm.
to break that down into little posts, videos, or whatever it may be, right? Like that's how most of our minds work. And as marketers, that's what we want to do. And then try to repurpose that as much as we can.
Exactly.
But a big thing or a big opportunity that I've been doing with a lot of different clients, or at least advising them on, again, we don't really do too much on like the organic side from like making
Yeah.
money off
Uh-huh.
of it, just more advising clients. But for us, there's a big opportunity where you can just start writing some posts. And if you're connected with the right people in your ICP and you start to see engagement off of a post, then that could be your indicator to then say, hey, these are actually some long pieces of long form content that
Exactly.
we should create. Plus, maybe use paid to then guarantee distribution to those pieces of content to drive even more traffic to them, because we already kind of did a little pre-validation on LinkedIn organic that people are actually interested in this. So I think that's a really a cool way, again, just kind of going back to like the organic and paid and trying to draw the lines between it,
Yeah.
how they
Yeah.
can kind of both work together, and also content marketing in general. But anyway,
Mhm.
you asked a different
Yes.
question though. So you'll have
So
to
you test
reel
on
me back in.
organic, you test in organic, and whatever works in organic, you're going to boost in paid and get some more exposure.
That would be one
reach?
way to do it. And some people are not in a good position to do this because either they're not posting organically today. So they're like, well, this doesn't apply to me. I don't do that. Or if they do, some people aren't really taking care of their audience in the way that they actually have a lot of people that they're connected with that are in their ICP. Most people just have an audience of people they had jobs with or colleagues or the people that work at their own company and stuff like that. And, people liking your posts that are all from your company, like, that's cool and nice.
It's probably 99% of the people on the platform, because unless you're intentional about this thing,
you have to be intentional.
And that's what's going to end up happening. You're just,
and it's so easy. Yeah. It's so easy to, right. Sorry, go ahead. I'm talking over
no, that's it.
Lag. Yeah, but it's so easy too. I mean, like one thing that I do, and we can shift me back to paid when you want, but one thing that I do is I'll connect with somewhere around 25 to 50 people a day, roughly, of people that are definitely people that I might want to work with or people that could get some value from my content. So a lot of those might be demand gen marketers or paid media managers, CMOs, VPs of marketing, a lot of times even founders and CEOs as well.
Wait, say that again. You said you connect with 2,500 people a day?
25 to 50 people a day.
Oh, 25 to 50 people a day.
I think LinkedIn has a limit. Yeah, LinkedIn, I don't think will let you do that. I think they cut you off. I don't even know what the number is now. I mean, it's like 100 or 150 or something. And they start flagging
so you go out and you do these connections.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's no message or anything. It's just connecting with people. And I don't have a really objective with it, minus to say, hey, like we're in the same space, like let's connect. And that's it. And I don't do anything with it. And
what's your acceptance rate?
I'd have to calculate it again. The last time I did, I think it was around 65 or 70 without any personalized message at all.
Huge. No way, really.
So, but I haven't done it in a little while to recalculate it, and see. But generally, most people do, that are active on LinkedIn and kind of know what you do. They see, okay, cool. Like he's in marketing too. He's doing some paid ads. That's cool. Like, maybe I'd like to do that or learn more about it or whatever it may be. So yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. So how do you guys get B2B companies on the paid train? First of all, is paid advertising for everybody in B2B? Should everybody be advertising? And distribution?
The answer is no. And the big way to think about that is to start to take a look at, what's your contract value? How do you convert deals through the funnel? What's your CAC? What's your CAC payback? And then you need to determine, can you actually afford to run paid ads given that mechanism of where your CAC and CAC payback are? And generally people want to be around something like a 12-month CAC payback. CAC's going to be all over the place. Very much depends on, ACV. So your annual contract value plus also LTV, lifetime value customer.
Lifetime value. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Which is really important too, because you may come in with a smaller deal on the front end. And if you just looked at CAC because of that first deal, you might say, holy shit, it makes no sense to be running paid ads right now. However, if you consider all the other upsell motions, or if you're a multi-product company, then you might say, well, wait a minute, we're going to upsell this client over the next 2-3 years, and they might be worth triple, 4 times, 5 times, et cetera, than the initial point they came in. So now it starts to make more sense. So generally speaking, I don't know, we usually always work with clients that are running paid ads that at least have an ACV of 5 to 6K. At minimum per year. Usually it's 10K plus, and then all the way up into hundreds of thousands. So if you're below that threshold, I think it becomes a little bit harder to play that game. But again, it really depends. So that'd be my general answer there.
Okay. So when somebody approaches you saying, hey, JB, do me some paid ads. We got ourselves.
They always say it like that too. Do me some paid ads. That's the way they say it. Yeah, I'm gonna use that one.
So what are some questions you ask? You ask them about CAC and CAC payback and their expectations on that, lifetime value. And I would imagine that early stage companies have a hard time answering those questions because they have like 3 clients. So how do you measure lifetime value when you have historically 3 clients?
And in that case, it might not be a good idea to spend on paid, honestly. I mean, if you're just in the early stage and you've literally have 3 or a handful of clients, I'd say you're probably too early. And the reason for that is because you likely don't have enough social proof. You don't have case studies, not enough testimonials, probably not enough traction where you're closer to product market fit, where it makes sense to start putting gas on the fire. So I think that's the really big thing. There's kind of like I actually have a post, funny enough, actually about this whole prerequisites to running paid that I think goes out next week or something like that. So it's actually kind of timely that you're asking this. But in that case, I'd say, no, it's probably not a good idea. And a lot of people just want to start putting money into the, paid media pile before they've really hammered out who their ICP is, their ideal client profile, right? Or have a kind of strong point of view or strategic narrative, and before they have content, before they have a lot of clients. And it's like, that just doesn't make sense. Like, you need to have a few of these things. They're not going to be perfect, but you need to have a few of these things aligned. Otherwise, page is not going to work well for you. So, I mean, that's what we see, in countless times with companies that reach out to us every now and then that are just a little too early on. So,
what about if they say, like, let's say they have the right mindset and they don't want to be lead generating or anything
sure,
cheesy like that. Like right out of the gate, they might not want to be lead generating. They say, okay, we're posting organically. We just want to give it a little boost. Like, we don't want to risk a lot of money. Sure. We just want to give it, our organic content, a little bit of a boost.
Sure.
Because we've got a little bit of budget for that. Like, does that work with many budgets, or is there a threshold for different channels that you advise people to actually hit before starting to even experiment?
Yeah, no. So interestingly, the example that you just mentioned, so what we did was something a little bit different. So so you can boost from your company page, not from your personal, but we took a personal post from one of our clients and we actually took a snapshot of it. And then we created an ad just of the post itself, just as if it was a boosted post, but coming from a personal profile, right? So it doesn't say the company's name. It has the personal picture within the name and everything in the ad. And then it was leading them to a piece of content that we were trying to push. And interestingly, it drove, I think it was in the first month or so, I believe there were 12 people that came in that were looking to talk to sales after that, which was pretty good for them. It was one of the better performing ads actually that we had, but it was literally just a snapshot of that personal post. So like that type of thing can work. The other thing too, on like lower budgets, when you're kind of thinking about, I mean, if there's people that are listening to this that are new to getting into paid, the first step is always retargeting. I mean, if you've pixeled your website, which if you haven't, that's the first step. Got to pixel your website, make sure you get the LinkedIn Insight tag on there, Facebook, and any other ad channel you're thinking about doing your targeting on. And then once that's on there, assuming that you've got some level of an audience, and for LinkedIn, you've got to have above 300, and for other channels, it's different. I think Facebook might be 100. I don't know all of them off the top of my head right now, but LinkedIn's for 300. So once you have that, then you can spend a very small budget. We're talking, maybe a few $100s or less than 1,000 to reach all of those people in your retargeting audience at a pretty good frequency. The issue is that retargeting pool will ultimately dry up at some point. So you've got to start setting up other audience. Exactly. You got to feed the beast. And that doesn't have to come from paid. Like, that could come from organic. It can come from events and podcasts and all sorts of other things like that, all sorts of other channels. But ultimately, like, we need to keep feeding the beast. Otherwise, that retargeting audience pool kind of dries up, and then maybe you can't even serve ads anymore. So those are some, like, I guess, lower budget ways to, boosting posts for sure, or taking screenshots of personal post, and then setting up retargeting audiences is like bare bones, like first step.
Yeah. Okay. And so how many channels should you go in on first? Like, let's say I think you can safely assume that your B2B SaaS decision maker or challenger in your ICP, like, they're probably on LinkedIn. They're probably on YouTube, most definitely on YouTube. They might be on the Meta platforms as well.
The Meta.
The Meta.
The Meta. I like how you said that. The Meta.
Yeah. So the FB and IG social networks, and you might be flirting with TikTok or whatever. Now, do you take it step by step? Because I know each of these platforms has like a minimum threshold for audience and like when they start showing your ads. So you actually need a somewhat of a big audience to get your ads going. But what's your approach? So how do you go about this?
So the question was, how many channels, right? How many channels should you think about? I mean, if you're starting from scratch, how many channels should you think about?
Because you said like we should start with retargeting.
Yeah. Well, the easiest thing, I mean, if you're just going to start with retargeting, then you can immediately do 2 off the bat, easy: Facebook, LinkedIn, down the road, done. And then you've got the 2 biggest social media platforms pretty much in the world, where you're now serving ads to, and you're covering up Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So really, it's actually technically 3 channels if you include Instagram. So that'd be first step that you could do. In terms of like focus channels where you're going to start putting like real dollars from like prospecting or going after people cold, there's kind of 2 things that I always think about. And one is, are you in a position where you're creating a new category or where there's not existing demand for your solution, or people are problem unaware. Like they don't really know that this is a thing at all. In those situations, Google Ads is probably not going to be a good channel for you. So this gets a little bit deeper into how do you pick channels, but Google Ads probably is not going to be a great channel. You'd have to do the research, look at different keywords, but if the category is unknown, if people don't know it, then I would definitely start looking at social channels like LinkedIn, Facebook, et cetera, to build more awareness and generate demand for your products versus spending money on Google Ads. If you are an established category and there is demand for your product today, and you're not spending anything on paid ads, then Google Ads, if you have the budget, could be a good starting point for you to drive at least a few short-term results. Because again, Google Ads, a lot of times, if you're bidding on the right keywords that have intent, are going to convert at a faster rate than, say, running LinkedIn brand awareness ads or Facebook brand awareness ads. So there's kind of there's so much nuance, I guess, to this, but that's an easy way to kind of think about like, which channel should I be on? And then again, back to your original question, how many channels? Kind of depends on your budget. I mean, ideally, like I'd want somewhere in the ballpark of 3,000 to 5,000 a minimum on each channel to even start playing ball on any channel.
Really? Okay.
And sometimes they can get more expensive. But again, retargeting is where it gets different. If it's just retargeting, then maybe depending on your audience size, you only need a 500, a grand. Maybe you're down the road and done. And then you can cover up that audience with some social proof, case studies, testimonials, product marketing ads, and ultimately some type of offer to get them to move through the funnel and get them into your hopper. So
yeah.
What do you think? You like it?
I like it. Yeah. Those numbers are a bit higher than I would have thought. But of course, I'm not a paid traffic expert. But so I totally
what were you thinking out of curiosity?
I was thinking like, I know like LinkedIn has a higher threshold, but I was thinking that for the other ones, like 3 to 5 would be like, I used to do a bunch of advertising on Facebook, like a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I wanted a good full scale experiment, and this was about 2 years ago, I spent 2.5 to 3 grand in about 3 weeks or a month's time. But I usually was able to like tune it down to some smaller amount and just keep things going with a smaller budget. But
it all comes down to reach, frequency, and then the size of your audience, and then your goals. So, I mean, if you've got 100,000, if you've got 100,000 people in your audience on LinkedIn, you're spending 2K, you'll be reaching a fraction of those people, and your ads will dry up by maybe the morning, and that's just a fact. So, I mean. But is that bad? Is it bad? Can you start there? Of course you can. You don't need to spend, tens of thousands of dollars off the bat just to get, start with LinkedIn. If you have a big audience of people that are in your ICP, it just means that you're not going to be hitting all of them. 1, your ads won't be seen throughout the day. 2, and then 3, the frequency may be too low for you to see good results, because as anything, like it's not like you just see one ad, and really it's true for any channel, not one post, not one ad, not one blog, not one anything, right? You see multitude of repetitions of seeing the same message or same company come up, and they're like, oh, go. Yeah, like I've heard of this company, the SDR reached out to me on email. I've seen like 3 ads on Facebook, 1 on LinkedIn, and maybe you don't know all this, it's in your subconscious, but you've kind of seen it. I was in an event, I read a blog and all this stuff, and like, boom, I'm ready for a demo. I want to see what these guys do. I've seen them all over the place. So, so you can totally get it done for lower budgets, but you just have to consider those 3 variables,
Okay. JB, where do you see organic going? So this whole, we briefly talked about this, and I had this post earlier today that I see a lot of people thinking on LinkedIn that the algorithm's broken because their reach is going down. And where do you see this playing out?
I am not in the whole algorithm camp, or I guess track it, or try to beat the algorithm as much as the algorithm beaters on LinkedIn do. I think you're right that, only LinkedIn makes money off of their recruiting platform, and they make money off of ads. So, your organic reach has been pretty strong for a while on LinkedIn. And I think clearly as you get more content creators and you get that wave moving of everyone wanting to now create content, well, 1, you've got way more content out there. So your reach could decline because there's so much competition for other people that are generating content, maybe similar alike to yours, especially the people you're writing for. But 2, also that LinkedIn makes money off of paid ads, and they want to grow that business. So ideally they want more inventory to serve more ads up, and want people to make sure that they're not totally leveraging organic only, right? And saying, well, organic's a way better deal. I can get way more reach for cheaper and it doesn't cost me money and all this stuff. I mean, LinkedIn wants you to spend money on the platform, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you think about it, right? So yeah, I don't know. I couldn't comment on like all the crazy algorithm hacks and stuff that people talk about. I mean, there's some best practices for stuff like that to increase engagement and reach. But the other thing to think about too is more likes and more comments don't necessarily mean anything. So let's kind of break down an example here. So I can have a post that says something like, know your customer is one of the most important things in marketing. I guarantee you, like every freaking marketer on the planet probably agrees with that. There's no one. It's like, this is amazing. Like, oh yeah, know your customer. Oh yeah. Everyone says that. So like, we all know it's important. How, we're just not all doing it, which is why we keep saying it. So there's all these moments of like, disconnected people. Yeah. But if you have a post where I talk about
be buyer centric.
Sure, yeah, stuff like that. But if I have another post where it's like really niche and it's maybe something like, I don't know, talking about exclusionary criteria for LinkedIn, then that's very specific. It's very specific to a channel, to paid ads, to the person that's actually doing it. It means probably CMOs are not thinking about exclusionary criteria, right? Like that's someone that's in the channel thinking about how to optimize their ad account. So it's likely that my audience size is smaller, therefore I'm going to get less likes and engagement. So I don't know if that's totally related to your point, but it makes me think about these things because everyone always hoorahs and we always get like, really bent out of shape. Oh, we didn't get as many likes or comments this day. And like, it feels good clearly when you get a whole bunch of people and you got a great post and you see it all, it feels good. But at the end of the day, you got to think about, all right, is that driving the objectives that you're trying to accomplish with your content? There's like the hoorah ego post, of all the stuff people agree with. And then there's the posts that actually add value. Maybe you're more niche, but those people are not reaching out to you saying like, hey, Dan, I'd love to talk to you, man. Like, you know what you're talking about. And even though like 5 people liked it, who cares? Like you still got someone that's maybe interested in, all the things that you do. So.
Yeah. And then again, like you got to balance it somehow because you should do some of those like ego pumping hoorah posts every once in a while because they do get to new people. But if that's, if you're overloading on those, then you're going to compromise your professional integrity, or not the integrity, but like your authority is going to go down. Yeah. And you do need the niche stuff that talks to your decision makers, your challengers, and about the stuff that they care about. So that's what's going to build your authority, and not the customers are very important type of posts.
The same thing applies with like writing ad copy too, or any type of copy, is that if the copy is more specific, then it's going to stand out more versus something that's very broad and general. So it's also about standing out too, and not just, again, driving the most engagement. So how do you figure out a message that's maybe going to cut through the noise? It's a little bit different and specific to what someone's thinking about today versus some broad message. And a lot of bigger companies have this issue where they've got a lot of products and they do a lot of different things, and they have these like big kind of visionary, dreamy statements that they don't really mean anything or describe anything about what the company does. And maybe you agree with it. It sounds nice and you want a hoorah or whatever, but what do you do again? And how does this apply to me? I mean, those are the questions that I'm asking sometimes, but yeah, it's always a mix, I mean, there's no like black and white, like always do this or always do that. It's a little mix of everything, and staying hopefully on point and thinking about what your audience wants. What do they want to read about?
Exactly. So. Okay. Yeah. Because the way I'd answer this question is back like
go for it.
Several years ago, I put a lot of money into Facebook ads with a different company. And I saw organic reach plummet like that. And then at that time, people a lot smarter than me who knew social media a lot better said, well, that's to be expected because of the reasons that you've described. More people on the platform, more content being created, and real estate is very finite. So your feed is very finite. So there's only so much space. Plus they want to be, making money off of that. So it's logical that this thing happens. And they also said that this isn't a Facebook thing. It's a social media thing. If you think about it, like all social media works on the premise of people creating content and others consuming content in their feed, be it videos or text or whatnot.
Sure.
And, it's just a maturity curve, and sooner or later it's going to get saturated and ads are going to take the place of organic posts. So sooner or later, they're all going to be pay to play with your organic reach, especially if you're a business and you're, you're doing businessy stuff on the social network, where and on LinkedIn, that's the majority of people, I guess.
Right.
Your reach is going to plummet. And if you want business out of it, then you've got to pay to play. And so I sort of accepted that as a reality.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm happy about it, that I'm seeing it happening, but
yeah. I mean, I wanted to go back to your point. I mean, well, two things. I mean, like clearly LinkedIn like cares about the experience. So like, it's not just going to be all ads in your feed. Like that's not going to happen. There's still going to be obviously always room for content creators.
Yeah.
Because if they did that, then I mean, that would be a very enjoyable platform to be on, right? If you just saw nothing but ads, even if they were the most valuable, most amazing ads in the world, like you'd still want to have some variety. So that balance will always be there to a degree. The other thing too is it's interesting what you said. I mean, when you said organic went down after launching Facebook ads, do you mean like organic traffic on the whole site went down, or are you talking about
it's like we were posting as a page, and I saw this with several companies. And then your reach just keeps on decreasing, and everybody's complaining about it. And it's not related to doing ads or not. Of course, people are speculating if you start doing ads, then your organic reach is going to go up. And that might have happened for a time. I don't know. Like those are always just rumors, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But yeah,
one thing that should happen if you're running a good paid campaign is that organic traffic should go up, as well as direct traffic, as well as paid search. So all of that, and especially branded specifically. Because that means that you're generating strong awareness, you're making people familiar with who you are, you're generating value, they're reading your content, whatever it may be. And because not everyone just clicks your ad and goes to the landing page and converts, people see an ad, they're reminded of something, or they consume some content in channel. They might go directly to Chrome, type in the name of your company, and then they might go look at it. So there's all these issues. And I want to go down an attribution rabbit hole because that's an easy one. We could probably talk about that for the rest of this whole episode. But the point is you should see like those things happening. And that's a good trend is overall. Yeah, okay, let's look at paid specifically and report on that. But let's also look at the aggregate funnel and see how things are coming in. Are we driving more inbound demo requests or inbound trials, more inbound pipeline, more inbound revenue over time? Or is it stagnating? Is it going down? Like, and those present clearly other issues to navigate. So something that we always see with any client we work with is generally that should be happening. Plus more branded searches on Google. And that's easy to go into Google and take a look at that in terms of your brand name, but that should be rising and you should be getting more brand conversions. Now, you can argue whether you should be spending on brand and all. Yeah.
By the way, are these the KPIs that you tell your clients that this is what they should be looking at? So is this what you're trying to optimize? Like, organic search and whatever translates to brand recognition and whatnot. So is that what you guys optimize for?
So we optimize for pipeline of revenue at the end of the day. That's the short answer. I did a Clearbit webinar with Colin a while ago, and I had a slide on there that I think was maybe a little bit too contrasting. And I said that marketers spend way too much time on leading indicators like clicks and impressions and all that other stuff, and CTR and optimizing for cost per lead and things like that, and not enough time on the lagging indicators like CAC payback, LTV, and funnel conversion rates and all that. And the reality is like, they're all important. It's that it's where you place the focus on what you optimize for. You still need, let's just talk about advertising for a second. You still need someone to see your ad, which means you need to win an auction. You need to have the right bid strategy or whatever. And you need to win that auction so you get the impression. Then you need someone to click, hopefully. Now, they don't have to click, and that's where this whole, you talked about it, maybe we should switch to this topic right after, but in-channel consumption versus needing to drive a click. But ideally, you still need to get people to your website some way, somehow, eventually. And you're always going to get a percent of those. And on LinkedIn, the average is 0.4, 0.5, Facebook, maybe 0.6%, et cetera. And each is going to have different. Obviously, anything above that in a cold audience is great. But it's really important just to kind of think about those metrics and still to optimize for some of the leading indicators, because you still need them, right? You still need those to work. But when you start looking at the downstream metrics and saying, okay, cool, like out of all of this money spent, how many demos are we getting by channel and by paid, but also splitting out and looking at the whole funnel? And so we'll do reporting a lot of times where we just set up a inbound demo request. If they're a sales-led company and they're trying to drive demos, we'll set up an inbound demo request report, which they probably have already, but we'll set it up. And then we'll do inbound pipeline, inbound revenue. And then we'll have some other reports that track funnel conversion rates and other things like that. But those are the core ones that we need to look at and optimize for ultimately. So it's really, I mean, the TLDR here is, I guess, you know, all metrics are generally important. Just make sure you're focusing on the right ones to optimize. Like that's the big thing. And ideally, those should be optimizing for higher conversion rates from lead to op and op to closed won, and then looking at the demo requests or trials to pipeline and then revenue. And those are the ones we look at all day long. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What do you look at? Back at you. What would you look at? I mean, what metrics would you be looking at? If
Yeah,
you
we've
were
got, okay.
tech
So we've got more of an account-based marketing focus, which means engagement with accounts. Sure. And all of that, and how accounts visit your website or other web properties like your Content Hub, like that tends to be our like top line metrics. And then and then we have revenue metrics like pipeline metrics, you know. So if something's been going on for two to 3 months, then we're able to look at pipeline velocity. And that tends to be a good measure. Actually, it's like we haven't come up with a better one yet. It's not that we came up with pipeline velocity. It's just that we haven't found a better KPI than that at the end of the day. But of course, like it takes a while, especially for a company who's just getting started with account-based marketing and campaigns and whatnot. You know, for months, you're not going to have enough data on that. If you're a SaaS company, maybe, but if you're like an IT services company and you close like, I don't know, 10 deals all year long, and you're like, yeah, we got 10 new deals, like you might be doing awesome business wise, but you know, your pipeline numbers are going to be weird because you're not going to be able to track, you know, pipeline velo and stuff like that. But yeah, so our top line metrics are things like target account engagement, either with your LinkedIn account, your posts, your website, your Content Hub, number of inbound demo requests or inbound conversation requests. And what tends to happen with what's awesome is that when you start really, you know, turning up your marketing game, be that paid ads or whatever else you're doing, you actually have an easier time recruiting. So our company has had inbound like job requests, like by some really good people. In fact, one of the people who work with us right now came through LinkedIn. They were like, hey, awesome. I saw your stuff. Do you have any jobs? Like what you're doing. Do you have any jobs open? And we're like, well, we could. So yeah. And then it turned out really well. And so this person is still with us, and it's great. So that's the short answer. But one thing I've been dying to ask you, and we can go to in-feed consumption after that, but I'm just like dying to get this question out. Sure. And you're going to hate this question.
Good. Good. I love questions that I hate.
But what, like right now, what is your favorite channel or platform for paid ads? And maybe it's like, and it depends on question, because it depends on a lot of things, but what's one platform which is like really up and coming and you're really interested in it and you've got your eyes on it and nobody else does? But so it's like not in anybody's radar.
Yeah, I guess there's two questions. They're like up and coming platform that I think has a lot of potential, and then my favorite channel,
advertising
at least we see working well. I mean, up and coming, clearly, like, you know, TikTok and everyone B2B is just nuts about it, and I think it's honestly a little early. It really depends again on, is your audience on that channel? That's the biggest question. Do they hang out there? And there's a number of ways to figure that out. And that's what makes it a good channel for you. So that is the answer. Across all of our clients, LinkedIn is probably the most common. We run LinkedIn across every single client we work with, because the firmographic targeting, obviously you can't beat. So that makes it really easy. And for the majority of people that we market for, a lot of their audience is on LinkedIn. So that's why it is a good channel for us to spend money on. But the thing about LinkedIn is it can be expensive. CPMs and CPCs are a little bit inflated. However, you have to always look at the downstream stuff too. Is that also followed through with cost of opportunity and everything? You know, you pay a premium for LinkedIn because the targeting's so precise, and people like to always contrast that with Facebook. So one could argue, oh, well, Facebook's better and it's my favorite channel because it's cheaper to advertise on. Well, it's only because a lot of times like
I don't
Facebook's.
like those arguments because, sorry to interrupt, but I think
Go.
in business,
Yeah.
there's no such thing as cheap or expensive. You
Mhm.
either have ROI or you don't have ROI or you don't know.
Mhm.
And in the case of paid ads, as you said, like you got to look at the downstream stuff. So at the end of the day, what's it going to cost to get a demo call or a customer or whatever your target metric is?
Yeah.
And then you can say it's still not cheap or expensive. It's like, is it worth it for you in relation
Well,
to everything else that you're doing?
I
So who
totally
cares what
agree.
the cost of click is or an impression is? Okay, impression, that's a different story because you might be going for, just content distribution. So that's a different story. But in terms of clicks,
Sure.
what do you think about that?
Well, let me come back to what you said because I think you're right and I agree with you. And I'd say that also just literally a conversation last week, someone saying our cost per lead is really high. What can you do to get it down? And my question back to them was, what is the target cost per lead and how do you calculate it? Because many times most people don't have a good answer to that. And if anyone's listening to this, they may not even know. And you may have to do some research and figure out what that is. Obviously we would like to have a cheaper cost per lead. That would be better, right? That reduces our CAC and everything. But it doesn't mean that we just want to drive the cheapest lead possible, because if the conversion rate doesn't follow, well, then now guess what happened? Your cost per opportunity is higher, your CAC's higher, your CAC payback is higher. Everything is now increasing the lagging indicators while you're sitting there trying to optimize for the cheapest cost per lead. Now, if you can lower cost per lead and still keep good conversion rates of the funnel, like, hey, hats off to you, like go for it. But I think that's also point related to exactly what you just said, which I think everyone needs to be careful on is, this is where you have to have that experience looking into the CRM and also the paid account and make sure there's a relationship and a tie between the two. So you can ultimately say like, hey, what's really working or not versus just making these decisions in isolation where you just look at the ad channel and then say, oh, well, great, CPL's rocking. We're amazing. We're getting tons of conversions off of these campaigns in Google Ads. Meanwhile, the sales team says they're not quality, they're not converting, they don't want more of them, and all of those things. So yeah, I'll have to pull me back, but I wanted to get that in there because it was directly related, and I completely agree with what you just said. So
Yeah. So back to your favorite channel.
yeah, ultimately, I think the answer here is we run LinkedIn the most for most of our B2B clients. Yeah. So LinkedIn, I think, is still a really good channel for a lot of people just because of the targeting. But again, if your audience is not there and there are other channels where your audience is hanging out, where their attention is, where you can better reach them more effectively, then go do it. If they're on TikTok and you're interacting on TikTok and you start to see more people that are there and you create an audience out on TikTok, well, then fair enough, go for it. So, I don't think there's a really a black and white. I know you'd love a black and white answer from me and just say like, Sal, this is what it is, but there just isn't. So it's just about choosing like the right mix of, do they hang out there? If they do, cool. Then I want to be on that channel because ultimately that's the whole goal of marketing. Like, where are people? I listen to this podcast. Yeah. Are they on this social platform? Are they at this event? Where are they? Wherever they are, I want to be. That's the simple way. Harder to execute on identifying exactly where they are. And ideally, or not ideally, but realistically speaking, like for example, for me, I spend most of my time on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm not on Facebook. I'm on TikTok a little bit, but not really. I don't consume a lot of content there or create yet. So for someone advertising on those channels that are not Instagram and LinkedIn, you're going to miss me. And the same thing's true probably for you, Dan. I don't know. Like, you're probably not active on every single social media platform. You're probably active on certainly LinkedIn and maybe a couple of others or one. And so that's where it becomes important to feel, have more of an omni type of approach and say, hey, I want to be on all these different channels, at least from a retargeting perspective, so that I can make sure I'm reaching people. Because not everyone, just because they're B2B, hangs out on LinkedIn. It just doesn't work that way. Even marketers. I know marketers that are not on LinkedIn. They're not. And marketers there's a huge segment of people that are very active in marketing, but some are not. And so that's okay. LinkedIn's still a good channel. You just need to kind of be aware that people go on different places and do different things. So, that's how it works.
Yeah, exactly. And have you had a lot of have you had a lot of experience with Reddit ads and Outgrow and all these and the retargeting? No, sorry, AdRoll. Yeah, I wanted to say AdRoll. I wanted to ask AdRoll. Yeah.
No, we don't do. I know you mentioned that in your post. We do some, and then Reddit we have. So I'll talk about the Reddit use case. We don't do a lot of it. Is the short answer.
Okay.
Reddit especially. Reddit's an interesting channel, and at least myself and the rest of my team, some others of my team actually know Reddit even better than I do. But Reddit was interesting because we had a client that was trying to target developers and data scientists and just very technical people that were doing a lot of coding, and we actually found that Reddit ended up being a very unique channel for us to reach some of those people, as well as Stack Overflow. Though Stack Overflow runs a managed service for doing their advertising. But those channels were actually much better to reach that specific audience. Whereas we are running LinkedIn for them right now, but it's not focused on the data scientists and developers. It's actually focused on some of the upper funnel kind of decision makers. We're doing some more brand category marketing and telling them how the product works and the value and case studies and all sorts of things like that. Whereas on Reddit, we're doing some more bottom of the funnel, focused on the actual end user and how they use the product and the benefits they get from it, because they're the ones that are actually going to be using the platform ultimately to make decisions on. So kind of two different approaches, but Reddit, only a little bit. We haven't done a lot of it. It always ends up being the kind of the typicals, YouTube, mostly LinkedIn, Facebook, and Google ads, but some YouTube. And then we do a little bit of display here and there for certain clients, but I'm not a huge fan of display. But have you done some Reddit? You got some experience in Reddit?
No, not Reddit, not Reddit, but I'm really looking at it. And I'm also looking at medium.com for quite a few clients. Yeah, both organic and I don't know what the site, still got to get into the paid options there. But that's an interesting platform for a lot of markets.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm a parrot over here, but I mean, again, it just comes back to saying, where's the audience? Where are the eyeballs?
Where's the audience?
And
exactly.
And your whole ICP, again, like you're doing some ABM stuff, it sounds like, with understanding engagement and accounts, and so are we. And you're going to have various different people in that buying committee. You might have CFOs and CEOs and other people at the top. You might have people that are more at a middle level, and then others that are actually going to use the product. And all of them need to be influenced in their own way. And all of them may not be on the same channel. So you may not, or at least all of them, well, no one's all on the same channel. I'll just say that. I mean, it's a black and white thing. It's just it's not a thing. So ultimately you got to say, all right, well, maybe it makes sense to break out, just like I mentioned, some of the end users on another platform where we know they interact more, and then have decision makers and other people that are influencing the buying process on another channel, versus just breaking up separate campaigns and content to those different people and all being on one. So, again, lots of ways to cut it. Ultimately, the chances are, and I think you said this from the beginning, pretty likely that, given that Facebook's still one of the biggest platforms out there, along with TikTok now, and then LinkedIn being the biggest B2B professional networking site, pretty good chance people are probably on there to some degree, maybe not as much as you and I are every day, but maybe once a week, maybe once a month. So there's still an opportunity to reach them. So, but
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I asked you a lot of questions. I don't know if you want to throw anything back at me.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to, I mean, in terms of paid, or let's make it more broad, I guess, in marketing in general, like what are some of the biggest mistakes you're seeing tech companies make right now with respect to anything related to marketing? And you can make it about paid if we want to stay on that line, but some things that you see that people should just literally stop doing right now. They're like, this doesn't make sense. Anything that you're seeing out there? Organic, by the way, we talked about that too.
Yeah. Quite a few things. Yeah. So if you want to start off with paid, I see still most of the ads that pop up on my LinkedIn feed are not very good. So it looks to me like, and you've got more experience with this, but maybe people are afraid to just boost content for content's sake, for distribution's sake. They always want some sort of click or lead gen, or they want to have a lead at the end of the day so that they can account for the money. I don't know what the logic behind it is, but everybody, your LinkedIn feed is so full of people attesting to the fact that you have to give people content where they are and have it consumable in the feed, and don't really worry about the click. Make the ad itself be worth its weight in gold.
Sure.
And I don't see many of that ads. I see a lot of those on Facebook though. So people who are targeting me on Facebook and chat and messenger, they get this. So they get content heavy posts with really awesome hooks and baits. And so they get me with those. So Facebook has better B2B ads, I think, but it's more targeted
Yeah.
towards like the, small biz startup scene and less at the enterprise level. So it's different companies advertising to a different audience, but they get it. So
Yeah.
they get it.
So
Yeah,
more like so the follow up there. So more it's the fact that the ads aren't good because many of them are all designed to just get you to click on them to actually get the value from them versus even if it's static image ad, getting some of the value in the static image ad or the carousel or using obviously video, which is a great way to get more in-channel consumption.
yeah,
And that's the kind of the biggest thing you see a lot of companies,
yeah,
or one of the
yeah.
biggest things that you
And,
see a
and
lot of
even their imagery, it's the boring corporate, but still very nice and
Yeah,
professional looking things that don't get
totally.
any engagement, don't raise, they don't generate interest, nothing.
Well,
It
it's
just blends
interesting
in
just
with
to
everything else.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, I mean, like we see that, and a lot of times we'll push our clients to do things that are a little bit outside their comfort zone. And sometimes we just get turned down. Like, no, 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 no. We're serious. We're formal. We don't do that. Right. And what I always say, and I mean, sometimes we just get turned down, right? And the CMO's like, no, no,
Yeah,
no, we have a tone and we have a style and it needs to be this way. Right. And sometimes you can't win that
yeah,
battle. Other times, what I almost always say is like, let's test it and see what the audience says, right? I mean, let's put the ad out there and we'll put one of your ads out
sounds
and one
fair.
of
Yeah,
ours, and then we'll see how they work. Or we'll create both
yeah.
ads, and one that you like in the way that's formal, has a serious tone, and then the other that's more optimizing for in-channel consumption. The hard part about doing this exercise sometimes is, the attribution whole world there around in-channel consumption becomes much harder, right? When you're optimizing for in-channel consumption, you're kind of giving away some of the
Yeah,
value there. So you may not have as much direct, like, oh, we launched this ad and it did this thing. But again, that's not the point
yeah,
of B2B, as you know, man. I mean, it's like
yeah.
there's so many different touch points. It's not like LinkedIn by itself is generating all the revenue for your company. It just doesn't work that way, I
Yeah,
mean, it'd be cool.
you
Yeah.
just got to be okay with knowing less. You
Yeah.
just got to be
Yeah.
okay with that going forward,
Yeah.
especially, with third-party cookies going away and
Mm.
all that. You're going to have less information on your buyers. And that would bring us to another topic, which is actually building zero-party data, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah. Well, let's do one more on you, because I know I've talked a lot, and then I know we gotta jump here in 4, but
Yeah.
you had another one maybe. I felt like you were kind of thinking about some others, but in terms of like
Oh
biggest
yeah, like
mistakes
the
or some things
classical
you,
ones, like not having your ICPs figured out and your
yeah,
messaging in place. The messaging being too vague, but that's an easy one that a lot of
right.
actually I'm seeing less and less of that. So as I don't know,
Mm.
as time goes by, it's I'm actually seeing some better messaging on behalf of companies.
Good.
Like I think there's progress in that in the world, so to say,
Yeah.
in the world B2B. I think there's progress in that.
What do you
So
think's
that's
leading to that? Do you think that people just have listened to you and I and many, many others beat their chest too much about knowing the customer better messaging, that now they just
I
get it?
think so.
Or are
Yeah,
they
it's a
just,
message, and people just gradually catch on to it.
yeah,
That's my hypothesis.
yeah.
I don't think it has to do with the colleges and universities doing a better job than the business
No,
schools.
definitely not. Definitely not. That'd be
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. And messaging is always one of those things. I mean, it's always a little bit in flux to a degree. It's never just done and said. I mean, Gong has gone through a ton of variations in their messaging, and other companies. I mean, all of them are the same. So it's never like you get to like, we cracked it. Here it is. Here's the message, right? Messages evolve because the product and the company evolves. You get into different spaces and you might need a different message to bring to the market. Plus, also, too, a lot of times in your early stage, you might have a message that applies to that given like slice of your whole TAM that works really, really well. But then as you move up market and move into different areas, you might
Yeah.
need a different message to actually relate to that person. So I think, there's all
Yeah.
those things to kind of consider too. But yeah, agreed. Messaging is a big one.
Yeah. Just real quick, you mentioned Gong. Do you have any favorite companies you think are really kicking ass, either in paid or in general in marketing?
So metadata, like what
Mhm.
they're doing. Actually, speaking at their demand conference, actually, which is October
Cool.
22nd, I think. Doing the recording tomorrow. But
Awesome.
yeah, metadata, I think, is doing a good job. I like Lucia a lot. Lucia is a cool company.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Gong obviously is great. A lot of their original research, I mean, it's just epic. I think metadata is kind of doing some of the similar stuff, but that original research is just so valuable for people. It's probably the
Yeah.
biggest advantage they have in terms of just creating great content, because it's based off of tons of data points that people can point to versus just opinion. So I think that's great.
I love it when companies use all the data and intelligence that they're gathering and they flip it into valuable marketing.
Exactly. Another one's Cognizant. I think they're doing a pretty good job in terms of what they're doing on a marketing front.
Yeah.
They've really taken they've adopted the whole, in fact, they've made their whole entire marketing mission just to talk about their whole transition from lead gen to demand gen.
Exactly.
Which is interesting. So they've done a lot of that. And of course, they're advertising their own products as well too, but their thought leadership's all around that kind of like topic and how they did it, which I think a lot of marketers are clearly interested in. They want to know, like, how did you do it? How'd you get off the lead wagon, and all that. So yeah, those are a couple of the ones that kind of stand out. There's probably some others, but yeah, you're seeing more and more that are doing the right things. And especially the earlier stage companies, like the bigger companies, are still doing a lot of the old school tactics because they've built so many programs and tech and headcount around running that strategy that it's very hard for them to kind of just say, drop the tech, fire some people, redo the whole thing, put that at rest. They're a public company. That's a scary thing for a big company. But the early ones, like when we talk to like the seeds and the Series A, I mean, these guys get it, a lot of them, and they're not hooked to like this whole attribution bandwagon, and they're not on that. They're in agreement. Like they don't want to play that game that everyone is used to playing. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer to the favorite companies I have.
It is, but it's good. I'm going to check out those companies again.
Yeah, you should.
I strolled by them. Yeah. Okay.
Well, cool.
Well, JB, good luck and have fun at Metadata's event.
Yeah.
And where can people reach you?
Easiest place is LinkedIn. So my name's on the screen, Jonathan Bland. So you guys can find me there, or you can go to omnilabconsulting.com if anyone's interested to talk about paid or marketing in general. I don't know, all of us at OmniLab like talking about it. So those are probably the best two places.
Awesome. We're obviously going to put those links in the show notes. And thank you everybody for taking part, for watching or listening. And greetings to your Hungarian Vizsla dog. I'm glad she's
fast asleep now, finally.
Okay,
she just said she was feeling jealous. She was feeling jealous, she's like, this Dan guy, I want to at least say something to him.
Yeah, a Hungarian. So there you go.
Exactly. There you go.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you so much. And I'll see you later. We'll do this again next time.
Yeah, pleasure, man.
Okay, bye-bye.
See you.